WASD keyboards has made their name in the keyboard community largely as a recommended option for fully custom keycap sets at relatively affordable prices. They also make some keyboards, and this is one of them. This is the WASD V2 TKL. I actually do quite like the design on this keyboard. It's got an angular look that somehow manages to stay clear of the gamer aesthetic. The case is high profile, which is always welcome, and is the common two-piece design made up of a top and a bottom. Sort of like the Clueboard, the top and the bottom pieces get wider until they meet, where they create an edge. This is more pronounced in the front and the back, and not so much in the sides. There are two small indicator lights in the nav cluster for caps lock and scroll lock. On the back, there is one set of rubber feet for the stock incline, and another set for when the flip-up feet are engaged. These feet are rubber tipped, so they don't have any problems with sliding around on the desk. I found that the incline without the feet to be perfectly adequate. I think this is also a plus because deploying the flip-up feet drastically changes the sound for the worse, as there is less surface area touching your table. One thing that slightly differentiates the V2 from other commercial TKLs is these dip switches. They have Mac and Windows modes, as well as native support for some alternative layouts such as Dvorak and Colmac. You can also switch caps lock with Control, much like the RealForce, and also enable or disable the OS keys, which is commonly advertised as a gaming feature. There are also function keys, but those perform operations that are found on other TKLs, like media controls. Some of these features aren't all that common, but I don't think they contribute enough to justify the price. One reason for this is the build quality. It's not super great. It's obviously just a regular old plastic build and doesn't weigh a ton. These aren't universally bad things, but the problem with the V2 is that there are just not enough securing points between the top and the bottom halves of the case. I wasn't able to find a proper disassembly guide for the TKL online, but I could only find one screw under the warranty void if removed sticker, and the rest of the assembly is held together by an unholy number of tabs. The result is a keyboard that is really hard to get open. Here's how I did it. I started at a corner, depress the two clips nearest to it, and get those out. Then you can work around the board undoing the clips, which take a good amount of force. When you get all of those off, the top and the bottom pieces separate, revealing the PCB, which is connected to a USB daughter board. If you look at the PCB, you can see that there are no holes or resistors for LEDs, so adding them is not an option. For that, you'd need to go for the code keyboard, which I think is an even worse value. So the case is nothing special. The construction is flimsy thin plastic, and just really disappointing build quality all around. Thankfully, this doesn't necessarily translate to a poor typing experience. It uses CoStar stabilizers, which manage to be relatively rattle-free without any kind of lubrication or dampening, and the sound is pretty alright too. Here's a typing test. These are Cherry MX Silent Reds, so most of the noise you're hearing is just the sheer scratchiness of that switch. So this keyboard actually ends up feeling and sounding pretty good relative to a lot of other commercial TKLs. Stabilizer rattle, which is the bane of a ton of retail keyboards, is greatly reduced, which really improves the sound. However, the sound is tainted by a significant amount of ping. I don't notice too much of it on this particular keyboard, probably due to silent switches, but there are a lot of complaints online. If I listen in close, there does seem to be a lot of ringing coming from the upstroke. I imagine this would be a lot worse for unsilenced switches. This could probably be improved by placing some foam in the case, if you are able to get it open. The horror of taking the case apart is something to consider if you want to swap out switches down the line, but I don't imagine most use cases for this board involving much modding. The V2 is available on WASD's site at around $150, which I think is kinda steep, but this does include custom keycaps. The bare bones option, which I have here, is about $95, which pushes it down to the realm of reasonably priced. Whatever you do, do not spring for the sound dampeners option because not only will they make your switches feel like crap and not work, they're extremely overpriced at $30. I assume this is the cost for labor of installation, but you should definitely try to save that by purchasing cheap rings from AliExpress and taking the 20 minutes to install all of them. Taken in a vacuum, the WASD V2 is a pretty solid keyboard. It doesn't require a lot of modding to get good, and you can get it in different layouts and switch options, which can't always be said for other retail lines. Things like dip switches for different layouts and swapping control with caps lock are little features that help the V2 stand out from the rest, but it's not enough to make it worth it. The problem with the V2 is that it definitely doesn't exist in a vacuum. When there are boards like the IKBC MF87, which feature a full metal case, excellent build quality, and even RGB, the V2 just seems like an overall dumb buy unless you really want to type in Dvorak or something. So if you can pick this up used for under $70, I'd recommend it, but any higher and there are so many better options. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, like it, and subscribe for more content like this. Leave a comment down below telling me your favorite TKL.